The glass door burst open without warning, and the entire conference room froze as Tim Cook entered, with eyes burning and shoulders tight. The tension hit like a wave as he marched straight to the head of the table holding his iPad like a weapon. His hand slammed it down onto the glass surface, and the screen lit up with the image that had already made its way around the internet. The room stayed dead silent as everyone recognized what they were seeing. The iPhone 17, complete polished rendered, exposed every detail from the curved titanium shell to the animated dynamic lock screen interface shown in the Keynote simulation files. Tim didn't speak. At first, he just let the image sit there glowing in the silence until finally he said, "Someone in this room or someone reporting to someone in this room leaked this, and I want to know who." He paused, letting it hang, then said, "No guesses, no theories, no panic. I want data and I want names. We are less than 60 days from Keynote. And this leak includes assets that were never uploaded to our global servers. This was local. This was surgical. This was internal." The marketing team chief tried to speak, but Tim cut him off. "We traced the download to a developer device codenamed Cedar Red, logged into the prototype vault at 2:14 a.m., and pushed through airdrop to an unverified MacBook at 2:26. The access credentials belonged to Andrew Lane, design engineer junior tier assigned to the EchoTrace integration module, and yet someone gave him access to the final Keynote render which he should never have seen. So here's what we know. He accessed it, he moved it, and he disappeared. His badge is deactivated, his phone's off, his apartment's empty, and his internal logs were scrubbed. But not well enough." Sarah from UX shifted uncomfortably, said, "Tim, he worked on the sensor layout. It's possible he had visibility into higher-level assets during component testing." Time stared at her for 2 seconds that felt like minutes and said, "If that were true, it would be your responsibility to flag it. If he was shadowing without clearance, you failed." Greg Federighi leaned forward, calm but strained. "We didn't know he had access. He was pulled into a late-stage module test. He wasn't meant to retain any version files." Tim turned slightly. "So you're saying he somehow accidentally ended up with not just the device shell, but the live Keynote animation that was still being reviewed by legal?" Greg started to speak again, but Tim raised his voice. "No, he didn't stumble into it. This was timed, this was intentional. He chose that moment to release it. And someone either helped him or let it happen. This isn't just a leak. This is an operation. And we are not treating it like a blip on a launch cycle. We are treating it like what it is, a breach of every principle this company was built on. We've always owned the narrative, always controlled the rollout. We don't play catch-up, and now we are watching our most secret project go viral in real time." He looked around the room, eyes landing on each person like a laser. "If you are hiding anything, if you are even suspicious of someone on your team, and you don't speak, now, you will be complicit. I want badge logs, VPN traces, security feed access, full access. I don't care if you're head of department or first-year intern." The silence stayed thick. Finally, Tim took a step back, tapped the iPad, which now displayed a countdown to launch date, and said, "We don't have time to wait. We fix this now or it's already too late." He paused again, then walked slowly around the table, making eye contact with each executive. In turn, his tone lowering, but no less sharp. "We trusted our system. We trusted our hierarchy. And we trusted each other. And that trust has been shattered with one image. Now the media thinks it has the full picture. Journalists are speculating, tech analysts are calling this a controlled leak, which it is not. And investors are asking, what else we've lost? What else might already be out there? We cannot allow confusion to grow while we stay quiet. We act, we get ahead of it. We build a wall around the truth until we are ready to replace it with something stronger. I want teams working around the clock. I want a parallel track Keynote plan, ready by Monday. I want legal involved but not in charge. I want the comms team prepped for worst-case narrative collapse. And most importantly, I want to know if there is anyone in this building who is not with us anymore, because the next time something leaks, it won't be a render. It'll be a recording. And if that happens, Apple doesn't recovers. Encryption, forensics. Hell, call Craig, tell him to cancel his lunch, this is war. The interrogation room was colder than necessary. A design choice meant to destabilize, but Andrew Lane didn't flinch. His eyes tracked the corners of the ceiling. The blinking red light on the camera, the smooth surface of the table in front of him. Then the door clicked and Tim Cook walked in alone. No legal, no assistant, no PR rep, just Tim, and the kind of stare that could slice glass. Tim didn't sit right away. He placed his phone face down on the edge of the table, walked slowly to the chair across and sat in silence for exactly 8 seconds, then said, "You know what this is?" Andrew said nothing. Tim continued at 2:14 a.m. "You accessed a restricted archive from a terminal you weren't supposed to be near. You pulled keynote content, a prototype design, render, a firmware snippet, and something we still haven't decrypted because it was wiped 2 minutes after extraction. Then you airdropped it from a personal MacBook that you brought into a secure zone under false asset ID. The camera in the room caught nothing because the blind spot was calibrated 48 hours earlier. Someone helped you, or you practiced enough to time it. And now the entire world has seen what was supposed to be our most controlled launch." Andrew finally spoke. "I didn't plan to leak it, I just needed someone else to see what was going on." Tim shook his head. "That's not how it works here. We don't escalate through Reddit," Andrew said. "Maybe we should time," said you accessed EchoTrace material. Andrew said I saw it accidentally. Tim said you labeled it Ghost Scan V3. We found the test logs. You ran emotion prediction loops against dummy user recordings from internal voice logs. That is not accidental. Andrew looked away for the first time. I was testing the limits and what I found scared me. You built something that learns more than just user intent. It interprets hesitation, discomfort, even uncertainty. It pushes experiences to the user before they even know they want them. You turned iPhones into mirrors. Tim's voice dropped. We optimize user pathways with behavior mapping. Andrew said, "No, you intercept agency, you nudge and manipulate under the label of personalization, and you do it without asking." Tim said, "We notify users in our policies." Andrew laughed. "No one reads 47-page documents." Tim Cook's tone sharpened. "You were brought on for a very specific task, not to play whistleblower." Andrew's eyes locked back onto his. "You asked me to be innovative. I found the edge and I realized it was a cliff. You were building a system to detect psychological fatigue in real time." And Tim said yes because people need support, not punishment. We tried to give the phone empathy. Andrew replied, "You gave it surveillance." Tim stood slowly. "I should walk out of here and report this as sabotage," which it is, but a small part of me wonders if you were just naive, if you thought leaking it would help people understand. Andrew said, "I wanted to give the public a chance to ask questions before you gave them answers." Tim took a breath. "The company has already locked your access, your email, your account, your health insurance, your key fob is dead, and your calendar invite for next week has been removed. The person who vouched for you has been suspended. The chain is broken and you are alone," Andrew said. Tim looked at him sharply. Andrew continued, "You think I'm the only one scared of what EchoTrace will become? The only one who saved copies, hid backups, rerouted logs?" Tim said, "If there are others, they'll fall just like you." Andrew said, "Maybe, but not before they expose everything." Tim walked to the door, turned one last time. "You're smart but not smart enough. You left a trail, and now we follow it, and when we find the next leak, we won't ask questions. We'll shut it down." Andrew smiled. The door didn't close immediately. Tim paused before leaving and turned back toward Andrew. One more time, his voice lower now, but somehow heavier. "You know, this didn't just put your name in a report, it put a dent in the very trust we rely on with every partner, every investor, every customer. When they look at Apple, they see security, not perfection, not morality, but consistency. And you broke that." Andrew said, "Maybe it needed breaking." Time ignored the comment, leaned forward slightly. "Do you think this was brave? Do you think you disrupted something meaningful? No. You made it worse now. Every time we present a product, people will wonder what's underneath. Every time we promise privacy, they'll remember you, not because you were right, but because you were loud and fast and clever is not always useful." Tim straightened up, walked to the door again, this time without hesitation. Andrew called out just before he left, "You'll never make EchoTrace invisible again. People know now. Even if you bury it, it'll live in the code forever." Tim didn't respond. The door closed, the sound of the lock clicking echoed louder than it should have. Tim Cook returned to the Security Operations Center, his mind racing faster than the code running across the monitors as he stepped into the dimly lit room where internal analytics teams were already cycling through badge logs, heat maps, and encrypted access histories. One of the engineers looked up immediately. "Sir, we found something that doesn't make sense." Tim didn't sit, just leaned forward. "Show me." The engineer pulled up a heat trail from earlier that morning. Not one, but two devices were active in the prototype vault at the time of the leak. The first was Andrew's as expected, but the second had no assigned user, no recent registration, and no known purpose. It pinged inside the vault, then again outside the building at 3:07 a.m. It left through an auxiliary loading bay under the label Prototype Housing Transfer with a scan code that matched a bin. Not an employee. Tim asked, "How was that not flagged?" And the engineer replied, "Because the label matched a registered non-human asset category. It bypassed. Normal alerts." Tim's voice hardened. "That's deliberate. Someone designed it to slide under the system." Another analyst jumped in. "We checked the routing logs. The data was pushed through an internal dev channel, restructured into an old firmware archive, rewrapped and deployed through a shadow repository that was set up 7 months ago." Tim's jaw tightened. That's not one guy working alone, that's infrastructure. He looked around the room for a moment. Processing, then said, "Isolate every outbound request from the DevKit database. In the last 90 days, I want tracebacks pulled. I want packet-level confirmation and cross-checks with every badge scan and hardware." And UI Labs Go, one of the engineers hesitated, then said, "There's more. We pulled all EchoTrace test servers into a central containerized unit for scanning and found a mirror system, not just a clone. A live alternate network running parallel with same input logs but different distribution triggers. Someone was studying how EchoTrace responds to stress variables from controlled environments, and they were routing it through a ghost partition we didn't even know existed." Tim stepped back, blinking once. "How long has it been running?" And the engineer answered, "At least 4 weeks." Tim muttered, "We've been watched by our own system," a voice behind him said, "or someone else has." And when Tim turned around, Craig Federighi was standing there looking worse than usual. Dark circles, sunken eyes, no badge visible. Tim stared at him for a long moment, then asked, "Where have you been?" And Craig said, "I've been trying to track the EchoTrace dev leak. I had nothing to do with the keynotes going public, but there's something you need to see. I found access logs routed through my old credential backups files I archived 6 months ago. Someone revived them, recompiled them, rerouted them through my device signature," and Tim said, "That's how they framed you." Craig nodded quietly, "And someone knew exactly how to make it believable. They used your trust in me," Tim said. "Do you know who it was?" Craig hesitated, then said, "No, but I think they're still inside. They didn't take the data and run. They're still pulling, they're watching reactions." Tim said, "We need to shut down the entire private dev cluster. Disconnect. The shadow network shut off EchoTrace feeds globally. And I want a full sweep of senior dev accounts, including mine. I want every terminal audited. If this person has access at this level, we need to treat it like a nation-state breach." Craig said, "Already started a silent lockdown on the repo fork servers. 2 of them didn't respond. That means they're either disabled or actively resisting. Trace the location from backbone logs, scrub the servers, isolate every commit from the last 3 days." Tim looked toward the main screen where the heat map was now pulsing faster than before and realized with a deep exhale, this isn't just about a leak anymore. It's about control. And someone inside Apple has been running their own experiment from the shadows, and now the whole company is the test group. The crisis peaked just after 3 a.m. when the trending tabs across all major platforms displayed the same phrase in bold capital letters: EchoTrace exposed, with a side-by-side comparison of Apple's public privacy statement and the internal architecture schematics showing predictive behavioral loops and contextual data triggers coded into iOS 17. The screenshots were watermarked with a name no one had expected: a senior executive whose account had been deactivated a year prior but was now suddenly active, pushing commits into a mirror repository traced back to Cupertino itself. Tim Cook stood in the strategy room. The lights dimmed. The hum of the servers. The only sound as the comms director turned and said, "We've lost the story, sir." It's not a leak anymore, it's a revolt. The room was filled with silent screens, glowing red security alerts flooded in from Apple stores across the country, where customers were already lining up, not for pre-orders but to cancel memberships, delete accounts, and in some cases throw devices against windows. The Senate had posted a formal letter of inquiry demanding sworn testimony from Tim Cook and his leadership team. And now the new video had surfaced, a recording from an internal strategy session dated 8 months ago, showing Tim on screen presenting the early vision of EchoTrace, saying clearly we can't get their permission because they'll say no, but if we give them results, they'll accept it. The clip had been downloaded 10 million times in 4 hours, and counting. A second wave of reactions came from within Apple itself. Hundreds of internal Slack messages leaked, showing employees arguing about ethics, begging executives to stop the rollout, debating resignations, some already gone. The boardroom was a graveyard. Tim stood motionless, reading one final report on a wall monitor. Craig had disappeared after the third audit and left behind a signed letter and 2 encrypted drives. The note said, "Don't follow the code, follow the fear." The drives were being decrypted by the minute, revealing internal testing videos of EchoTrace reacting to user mood shifts in under 10 milliseconds, altering lock screen brightness, adjusting text, sizing, slowing message delivery, pacing, all in real time based on emotional interpretation. A developer voice in one video said, "It's not a phone anymore, it's a mirror with a plan outside the company." Protests formed in silence, masked crowds holding signs reading, "I want to think for myself," and "Watch me watch you." And behind them, federal investigators quietly walked into the Cupertino campus at 7:32 a.m. with sealed warrants as Tim was about to walk into a press briefing. His phone vibrated one last notification. The App Store dashboard revenue had dropped 12% overnight, the lowest single-day dip in Apple history. He looked in the mirror one more time in the hallway and saw not the face of a CEO, but the architect of a system that outgrew him and now consumed him. He took a breath, stepped into the cameras and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, before I answer your questions, I have a statement.